Since this year's night vision theme is about Vietnamese culture and determination, I would like to share how I've experienced this in a unique way. You see, I was adopted from Vietnam in 1974 when I was only 4 days old. The woman who adopted me worked as a secretary for the Army and traveled to Vietnam during the end of the war just to get out of her own small town in Kentucky. She always had wanted to have kids and a family, but never got married. Towards the end of the war, she found the chance to adopt two baby girls. I was one of them. From Vietnam, we flew to live with her sister in a suburb of Indianapolis, Indiana. As a baby, people would say really stupid things to us, and mom, such as, "But how will they understand you? What if they don't like the food? Oh, they look just like you. They'll never know they're adopted. Aren't you afraid their real mother will want them back? How much did it cost to get them?" Growing up, she would tell us stories and show us old photographs of her apartment in Saigon, local folks she got to know, and the crowded street markets with food and shopping items. She remembered the bicycles and motorcycles that crowded the streets and the rickshaws. Ma did her best to affirm that we were Vietnamese, but in a suburb of Indianapolis, the closest thing to our culture was a cheap Chinese food place and TV shows and movies glorifying the war. I had few to none role models as an Asian American and specifically Vietnamese kid. I don't remember learning anything about Asian American communities in school. But with determination, I survived similar to any other kid in the Midwest. I found a group of close friends, joined the marching band and played clarinet, participated in tennis, softball, and ice skating, did photography for my high school newspaper and yearbook. All of this to say that I never remember really being conscious of race and ethnicity. I think back then, people did more of the colorblind thing. Navigating through white spaces continued as I selected to go to a small private liberal arts college just north of Chicago. Unlike the University of Illinois at Chicago that has the Asian American Resource and Cultural Center, my college barely had a diversity office, and it seemed like they predominantly served African Americans at that time. I didn't see myself there. It wasn't until my junior year where I helped to establish an Asian American student organization, and I went to my first Asian American student conference. Meeting other Asian American students from the Midwest, hearing presenters and the keynote speakers radically changed my conscience and identity. In 2007, I went back to Vietnam for the first time with an organized homeland group called Viet Ties. It was unique because all the other participants were kids between the ages of 8 and 12 years old and traveling with their families. I was the only adoptee that was an adult, and I was traveling by myself. My trip was amazing for almost too many reasons to share. Just physically being in my native home country was significant. Then to walk the same streets that Ma had walked so many decades ago made me feel even more connected to her and my country. Although I didn't have the lofty goal to find any of my biological family members, I did have slim hopes to find two women Ma knew, Bai and Boy Tu. I had written Bai a few months before my trip but hadn't gotten a response, but I was still optimistic. Due to the extra hard work of the local tour guide, Tom, I was able to meet Bai and Boy Tu literally my last day of the trip. Between tears of joy and excitement, we communicated via a translator and facial expressions. There was so much I wanted to hear from their perspectives. I wished that Ma had been able to do this trip with me, but it just wasn't possible due to her failing health. Little did I know that 3 years later, she would pass away. I regret that she never got to go back to Vietnam like I did. In addition to my own race consciousness, I became more aware of my sexual identity. I began to recognize that I had feelings for both men and women in different ways and identified as bisexual. I began to think about homophobia and heterosexism and I heard from other people of color talk about their experiences with discrimination and prejudice. I'm proud to have helped organize the Dyke March in the Argyle neighborhood of Chicago for 2 years, and that I've marched in the Chicago Pride Parade with UIC for many years. Feeling such love from hundreds and thousands of people was awesome, while also looking for other queer Asian Americans. At that time, I didn't see any. And here I am today, the interim director of ARC, and I've continued my own cultural exploration of Vietnamese heritage and community organizing. I have a very supportive group of friends who are Asian American and identify as straight or LGBTQ. This year, the LGBTQ Asian American group called Chicago Eye to Eye marched in the Chinatown Lunar New Year Parade for the second time and was greeted with cheers and acceptance. This determination to be a healthy, open-minded, well-rounded, conscious, inclusive, educated person is what makes who I am today. I've made some mistakes along the way, but I don't regret very many things in my life. I offer to the Vietnamese American community that adoptees and Vietnamese people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning an ally are absolutely part of the Vietnamese heritage and narrative. It is imperative to include them and make safe spaces.